Strangers, believe me when I say, loving me is loving danger. Your heart is bound to break. I walk alone in the night, beneath the pale moon. Loving's for the fools. Baby, beware of my bite. I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf, I'm a lone wolf, I'm a lone wolf, I'm a lone wolf, I'm a creeping through the shadows and the corners of your mind. will the wind blows. I run but I don't hide. I hear the call of the wild, whispering the name. No, I can't be tamed. My heart belongs to the night. I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm a lone wolf. 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 I'm a
Good evening, guys, and welcome to a stream. So none of you have probably got notifications on this, which is obviously interesting in itself. What we're going to be doing is we're actually talking with a lady from South Africa. We're going to actually be talking about the current crisis that is actually happening over there. I don't know if she wants me to mention what she does for a job. Is that too much detail, or?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So she is actually a teacher over in South Africa. So she does have experience with white population, black population, with some of the stuff that is actually going on at the moment. And we're basically going to spend about the next hour or so just having a chat to her. Obviously, presumably people have seen the Farmlands documentary that Lauren Southern has put out. And obviously we're going to be taking references to that and just basically talking about what is actually going on and what's actually happening in South Africa, because at the moment everybody wants to know, from average day people through to politicians. So we have changed her name, we have changed her icon, obviously for anonymity. So quote Susan, yeah, we'll just kick it off. So you're actually over in South Africa at the moment. Oh, before we do that, by the way, guys, obviously, Satellite, you want to say hi, introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yep. So some of you guys know Satellite from previous streams. Yeah, and he's obviously streaming this on Gab as well, and he'll be uploading his video to Chute as well. So yeah, quite interesting. But okay, so quote Susan. In South Africa at the moment, there are a lot of reports coming out about the sort of, I don't want to say genocide that's happening at the moment, but definitely the black portion of the population, quote, rising up in an unfriendly manner towards what they commonly refer to as the Boer. Is this actually true? Is this actually happening? What is actually happening over in South Africa at the moment?
Yes, there's a definite correlation between what our politicians are saying and some of the things they mention in their speeches and songs they sing, and the farm murders. In fact, only this week there was a book that came out. It's called Kill the Boer, written by AfriForum's Adam Roots. He was on Tucker Carlson also recently about the same issue. That explains the correlation between what the politicians are telling the people and the farmers themselves. They are even asking for an investigation into Julius Malema, that's the leader of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, because there's been reports that a former gang member has said that Julius Malema offered him a job killing farmers when he got out of prison. Obviously, we don't know if it's true or not yet, but they've asked for an investigation into it. Somebody did ask Julius Malema about this on Twitter, and his answer was maybe, maybe not.
Wow. Okay. All right, so there's a lot to unpack there. So, okay, so have you, like, obviously you and I have spoken in private before, but obviously people at home aren't privy to those conversations. So have you actually seen instances where these white farmers, let's talk about that for a start. Have you actually seen or instances or heard of instances where white farmers have been targeted by the black portion or black population in regards to them seizing land or just attacking the white population?
Yes, in different ways. The most brutal one is the farmers themselves, because they attack the farmers because they're isolated. They're an easy target, basically, and they do it in groups of 3 to 11 people that go in and attack, usually elderly people, like age 68, 78 even. And then they used to call it just robberies gone wrong.
Right.
But the level of torture is amazing, and sometimes there's not even much stolen.
Yeah.
Then in terms of the land grabs, that has started as well, especially in the Johannesburg, Pretoria area, and there was a lot of problems in a coastal town called Hermanus.
Well, okay. So
where the people start out, they just start plotting out land. They start riots. It turns violent. They call it protest, of course, but I mean it's looting and it's burning buildings down, attacking random people in the street, stuff like that.
So we actually, sorry, I was going to say we actually saw an instance of this on news. It actually made the mainstream news over here, where these Africanos went into, I think it was H&M or H&M, went this store, and basically rioted the store. And it actually came out that these guys that were rioting the store were members of this political party that is pushing for this whole black killing whites or white genocide or whatever it may be. There was some sort of link.
That's the EFF. The leader, Julius Malema, is a scary man, to say the least. He's completely communist. They're pushing for nationalization of everything. They're the ones behind the push for expropriation without compensation. That's a nice way of saying we're going to take your property and not give you any money for it. He's also the one that's singing "Kill the farmer, kill the poor." We're going to cut the throat of whiteness in this country. Stuff like that. I mean, at public events, at rallies and stuff. They even started attacking other races in South Africa, like sorry about that.
That's all right.
Recently, he was in a town in the province that I live, giving a speech on Youth Day, saying that not some, but most, not all, but most Indians in South Africa are racist because they weren't as oppressed as the black people were during apartheid.
So it's kind of like oppression Olympics, really. They're basically going through and trying to make out that they were more oppressed than other people. And do you think this is?
Yes, because
sorry.
No, there's a new saying that has come up in South Africa as well. That's you're not black enough. So even if you are not white, if you're, let's say, colored or Indian, if they decide you're not black enough, then you weren't as oppressed as they were. They deserve first right to any job or property or whatever privilege there is. That's basically the way it works now.
Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard rumors of this where people are going through, and now that the employment over in South Africa, unless the company has something like 92% black or something like that, they're now enforcing they're literally forcing people out that are white, employing people that are black, and they're just refusing to employ people that are white because of they're matching the diversity of Africa. So for example, say Africa is 8% white. They're literally going through and saying, well, only 8% of your workforce can be white. The other 92% has to be black.
Yeah, they're enforcing that, which also means that in some cases positions are either given to people who are not qualified for them, or the positions are left vacant. Important stuff like engineering, for example, we have a shortage of engineers because a lot of the white people who are engineers can't apply for those jobs. They won't get them, or even if they can apply, but they won't get the job.
Yeah.
The same if you start a business. Black economic empowerment means that if you want, the government is the biggest source of contract for private. And if you want to have government contracts, or if you don't want to get taxed to death because they will penalize you as well, your company has to be more than 50% black owned.
So the problem I see with this is that if they're giving the jobs to people that are not actually qualified for these jobs, this is going to cause infrastructure breakdown. This is going to cause schooling, education breakdown. That farmlands and that are going to be just ran into the ground if they don't have.
Yeah, it's already happening. I mean, you can see the country falling apart around you.
This is happening with water, correct? The water dam?
Water.
Yeah, I was going to get onto that.
Definitely water is a big problem. There hasn't been new dams built. I mean, South Africa is a water-scarce country. There hasn't been new dams built, anything done to maintain the water infrastructure we have. And every week or every other week, if I just drive around my town, I'll see water pouring down the street because some pipe started leaking or broke or whatever. We even have a massive sinkhole next to the town because of underwater pipes that started leaking, and now there's a fight between, I don't know, 2 different town councils about who's supposed to fix it, and that hole has been there for 2 years.
Wow.
Right next to the highway.
Okay, so
it's already falling apart.
So for the people playing along at home, as one of my favourite quotes, in case the people are not aware, Cape Town, for example, at the moment has a huge water shortage. And this is sort of where I was going with this. Many people say that the reason why Cape Town is actually struggling when it comes to the water supply for South Africa is because of the fact that they have removed the white engineers and the white population who have ran these systems for the past 20, 30, 50, whatever years. They've employed the black population because of this diversity hire that the country has put through, and they are just not qualified or do not understand how the technology works.
Yes, and nepotism is also a very big problem. You give your friend jobs, your family jobs, even though they are completely unqualified to do those jobs. At some point, we had a police high commissioner that had a degree in education or something like that. They might have some kind of qualification, but they don't have the correct qualification for the job they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that definitely contributes to it.
So you get someone, for example, like say, I had a friend, say Matt, and Matt might be trained in IT, for example, but I run a water filtration system. Are you saying that they're just simply turning around saying, well, Matt can come and work for me, even though he's not trained on those particular systems? That kind of seems a little dodgy to me.
No, I mean, you're using an example IT. Most of these people have, if they have tertiary education, it's usually social studies or some kind of social science or arts or something like that, nothing technical.
Oh.
And then they're employed at ESCOM, for example, or where you need highly technical people to work there. Even they went through, there was a lot of corruption in our National Broadcasting Commission. The SABC, South African National Broadcaster. And they found that, I can't remember the percentage now, but most of them didn't have the correct qualification for the job they were in, working there.
Wow.
And stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So that's amazing. So at the moment, as there's been a few Australian politicians that are talking about bringing over some people from South Africa, the white farmers from South Africa, and giving them emergency visas. Do you think that the white South Africans would take this opportunity if it was presented, or do you think that Africa would stop them from leaving Africa? Like the government would stop them?
In the first place, the government doesn't want the outside world to know what's going on here. They have this image in the world as being our liberators. They brought freedom. We're the rainbow nation now. Everything is kittens and unicorns. Everything is just fine and dandy. They completely lost their minds when AfriForum went to America to try and garner support for the farm murders. They tried to recall them, and they just told them, no, AfriForum is not a government organization, it's a Afrikaner rights organization. So they couldn't do anything about it. They even went as far to say, no, we'll promise to address the problem, just come back, don't go to America. So they really don't want the rest of the world to know. I remember with the Australian thing, they went as far to call your minister, I think it was a minister.
Yeah, Peter Dutton, I think it was.
Yeah, Peter Dutton.
Called him a racist for saying that white farmers were being attacked in South Africa, when in fact it's statistically the most dangerous job in the world.
Yeah.
The murder rate is 138 per 100,000.
Holy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's twice as dangerous as being a police officer in South Africa.
So that's one question I was going to ask is, with the situation that's going on over there at the moment, is the police officers, are they doing anything when it comes to the black population that is targeting the whites, or are they turning a blind eye to it?
Oh, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've also heard rumors about if you're a card-carrying member of the correct political party, and you get arrested, your docket will just disappear.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of corruption going on. A lot of it is just incompetence. You can call the police and you'll wait hours for them to show up, even though you live down the street from the police station. They're not very keen on doing their jobs. I mean, I think there's 3 times more private security, people who work in private security in South Africa at the moment than there are police officers. It's a really booming business because you have a much better chance getting help if you get attacked or if there's an emergency by calling a private security company than you would by calling the police. People also organize themselves into groups, especially on the farms, to check up on everybody, make sure everybody's okay. And it has prevented a couple of farm attacks becoming farm murders by the people, the farmers communicating with each other and then running to help each other if something does go wrong.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, I've heard about this. I've heard that there's certain WhatsApp groups. I don't want you mentioning names. Obviously, I don't want these groups shut down. But I've heard there's WhatsApp groups. I've heard of, in the Farmlands documentary with Lawrence Southern, they talked about how they exchange phone numbers and they set up this communication line with all the other different farmers. And if something happens, they call these other people and let them know. Sorry.
Susan was mentioning to me that one of the people who run it, there might be something a bit dodgy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not exactly this. Yeah, the biggest self-defense organization that's Suidlanders, that they also talked about in Northern Southerns documentary. One of the problems with that is that they tend to cry wolf and say, "Oh, it's going to happen next week. It's imminent. A civil war's going to start. It's imminent. It's around the corner. Please donate to us. Please join us and pay our monthly fee." And it's not completely there yet. I mean, it can happen any day. Something small can go wrong, and the entire half of the country can come down in flames. But what's worrying us about that is that they're like the boy who cried wolf, and we're afraid that when the day does come, when we actually do need help, people will think, oh, they're just saying that to, I don't know, get more donations or whatever.
So that's something that Lauren Southern didn't touch on in a documentary. You say there's a fee for the Sidelanders.
Yes, and last year when they had problems in Kalinia and Lichtenberg, when the black population rose up and they started burning the entire town down, they asked the state for help, and they said they will only help their members.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry, they would only help them with what? Sorry,
They will only help their members.
Oh, okay. They wouldn't help anybody else. Yeah, they would only help their own. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because they're made out in Lauren's documentary. They're made out to be these sort of militant heroes that are, and I'm not saying they're not, obviously, but they're made out to be these guys that are the last line of defense. And well, it's a little bit disconcerting to hear that they're only they're charging people to join their group, and B, that they're only helping their own. That is a little bit concerning, but yeah, moving on.
Also because they're such a big group and they're becoming so well known. It'll be easy to infiltrate them, to just figure out what the plan is and to basically sabotage them.
Yeah,
it seems to be better to work in smaller groups within your own community.
Cells. Yeah, like sleeper cells. I don't like using that term normally because it's very, it's sort of it has a bit of a bad stigma to it, but like a sleeper cell, like a group of 6 or 8 people sort of thing.
Yeah, just people looking out for each other, basically protecting each other, that lives close enough to go and help if something goes wrong. I did tell you quickly last time, somebody I teach with, her husband, got attacked on their farm about 2 weeks ago, and his life was saved by him being on the phone at the moment they started shooting at him, and the person on the other end of the line calling the right people to come and show up in time.
Yeah, you were saying that it was because they heard the gunshots that they hung up and they called someone else who turned up, and that was Lauren actually mentions that something similar in her story. I wonder if it's actually the same farmer, but moving along. But yeah, so you're a teacher. We won't get anything more specific than that. Obviously, I don't want any harm to come to you, but you're a teacher in South Africa. Is the crime rate in these cities and these areas, is it as bad as what, like you were saying to me, I don't know if you want to retell the story about the crime rate and how people, the stealing and things that go missing?
Oh, yes. Yeah, most people I know have been robbed or their houses broken into. Our house was broken into just before we moved in, and the only reason they broke in was to steal out all the copper wiring. Our internet provider is now trying to replace the copper wiring with optic fiber because the copper wiring keeps getting stolen. If you put something down and you don't watch it, I mean, in class now, I can't put my phone on my desk; it'll disappear.
Right.
Laptops have disappeared like that, and it's literally you turn your back for 1 second and it's gone. Same with if you're driving around, you have your windows rolled up, you make sure your doors are locked, you don't leave your car open, you clutch your handbag, you make sure it's closed, you check if your wallet's still in your pocket. It's we're used to it by now. It's how we live every day. And then obviously we're behind bars, behind barbed wire fences and security alarms and big dogs, all to try and protect ourselves from somebody either coming to rob you or to kill you.
Like the toll on the psychological effect on people must be horrendous. That these people over in South Africa, they're growing up, they're surviving this what seems to be something similar out of a war zone. That, you know, just the effect on someone's mental state alone must be huge. That how do people survive this sort of living in these sort of situations? That
I don't know. I think it's you get used to it over time.
yeah.
I can't imagine not locking a door or leaving a window open. I mean, even though I can open my windows, but it has double bars on the inside and on the outside. I can't imagine not having that. I don't know what it feels like to feel safe without that.
Like that in itself is scary. The fact that you can, I'm in Australia. Okay, so like sure we go out, we lock our front door, obviously, but you know at night, for example, I don't sleep with bars on my windows. That I don't sleep with bars on both sides of my windows, for example. That just to me in itself, if that was my situation, I would be like, get me out of here. I would be leaving for the nearest closest place that I can imagine. That I would just be like, this is shit. I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak ill of where you live at the moment, but you know, like I'll be like, this is crap, this is bullshit, get me out of here, I don't want to live in this place anymore. That is there any way of this situation over there turning around or becoming somewhat civilized again, or do you think this is just going to get worse and worse and worse?
No, I think this is just going to get worse, especially as the country itself gets more desperate. Crime will rise even higher. I've just been looking at an article about our economy yesterday, and we're on our way to Zimbabwe because they've already raised our taxes. Every state-owned enterprise you have to pay for services from, like the electricity, water, all of that, they have raised by 30% this year. They put up our value-added tax. And you have to keep in mind that it's about 10% of the population that pays 90% of the taxes in this country, while a third of the population is on welfare. We have an unemployment rate of 27%. Our youth unemployment, people between the ages of 18 and 25, is over 50%. It's just getting worse. The next step is what they plan to do is try and nationalize our reserve bank so they can start printing money, just like Zimbabwe did. And then next thing is hyperinflation.
Because
I don't see it becoming better.
Because that works so well. Sorry, I was going to say, because that works so well in Zimbabwe. The whole situation over there got so much better, like, after they did all those sort of situations. For people playing at home, I am being completely sarcastic here. Yeah, but anyway.
And there's obviously then the big issue, the expropriation without compensation, where they plan to basically do away with property rights. They are going to test it in the Constitutional Court to see if they can get away with it, as our Constitution is written right now. If they cannot, they plan on changing the Constitution itself to take it. So they will... And they don't plan on handing it out to other people. It will become state property, and you will lease from them. It's basically communism.
I was going to say, that sounds like communism to me. This sounds like you are going down the same path that Venezuela is going down at the moment. And for the people playing along at home, Venezuela at the moment, you can go to work for a full month and you will make $1. That is, they are people literally starving over there so bad, they literally attacked the zoo animals to eat them. Like,
yeah,
this sounds like what this is. Yeah,
they're doing this by getting rid of the people who provide their food.
I don't know. It's just I don't want to go and start building my aluminium hat again yet, but it just seems like we're seeing a lot of these countries try this same sort of system. It seems like there's, I don't know, it just seems like...
And if you could ask them about it right now, and you can ask them, if communism has never worked, why do you think it will work this time? And they will just give you the answer that everybody's always given. But they didn't do it properly.
Yeah.
We're going to do it right this time. Yeah. And it's...
Anyway, getting back to fleeing South Africa and whatnot. So my understanding is that the government of South Africa doesn't want the white population to leave because the fact that they still work, they still own some of the machinery, they still run some of the plants and everything like that. They're still, while they might hate the white population, they are very much needed over in South Africa because of their expertise. So...
And not just that, we are the scapegoat for everything that they do wrong.
Yeah.
It's rife with corruption. I mean, there's a small black elite that's very rich, and then the majority of the rest of the black population are still, I would say that they're poorer now than they were before 1994, right? And if they start complaining about it and they'll say it's because you guys are corrupt, they'll just say, no, it's not the corruption. That's not our fault. They call it white monopoly capital. They say it's because the whites still own most of the land and most of the, even though we're subject to black economic empowerment. We're the boogeyman. We're the ones that gets blamed when they can't run the country properly. It's always our fault. It's always apartheid's fault. It's still apartheid's fault, by the way. Even though it's been 25 years and the country has deteriorated since then, not gotten better.
Okay, so one thing I
the
want
infrastructure and stuff like that.
So one thing I want to...
Go on.
So that's fine. So one thing I want to ask is, you are a teacher, so you would know about the history of South Africa, presumably. So correct me if I'm not wrong on this, but when the whites came over to South Africa and they colonized the country, they actually offered the black tribes that they were buying this land from, they were offering them these payments, cattle, there was, spices or whatever it was. There was some economic exchange for the land that the black population sold to the white people. Is that correct?
Yes, in fact, there's one group that actually has they still have the document that they're trying to take to the Land Restitution Court to claim a large part of the interior of South Africa actually belongs to the white people because we bought it. We have the deed that shows that we bought it from a black tribe. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work, but I mean, historically, that's correct. So, it's either that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's either that the land was unpopulated, and don't get me wrong, there were some clashes between blacks and whites with the small tribes that were here, and the rest of it was by conquest. That's the three ways that we got control of the land.
So, presuming the first way is accurate, because, like you say, they have deeds and stuff like that. Presuming that is accurate, what is the argument for the black population shooting the white population and taking their farm, claiming it was their farm in the first place? They must realize that if your ancestors sold, are they not getting taught this at school? Is there some sort of...
No. They're not getting taught this at school at all. The first thing that left after 1994 in the curriculum, for a couple of years, they didn't teach history at all.
Right.
Because they were busy rewriting the history curriculum. They took out all of the history of the white South Africans out of the curriculum. The only part that's in, as far as I know, I teach high school, I don't know about primary, but the only part that's still in that I'm aware of is apartheid, and that's about half of the year's work in the grade 9 curriculum. They only get taught one version of the story, basically.
So
you get these kids.
So it's just all stripped. So it's just stripped from. Okay, so I'm starting to understand the problem that you have. You have a whole bunch of people that have been filled up or led to believe something happened that, from our understanding, never happened. You get them building up this victim mentality while the whole bunch of government is literally turning around saying, kill the Boer, they're the reasons for everything failing. Yeah, of course the black population is going to go through and start, I don't want to say, I don't want to say genocide, but start attacking the white population. That this is... Does anybody at some point sit there and say, well, hang on, you're rewriting... Did anyone speak up and say, well, you're rewriting history, you're changing what actually happened? Did anyone...
Oh, that's right, but I mean, we're completely subject to national curriculum set by
the government,
the ANC.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's not much you can do about it. You can. I mean, I've done it. I've swung it a little bit more fairly. I've tried to do that, showing the entire case from both sides, and then they still end up writing in exams, oh, the black people were held as slaves during apartheid, which that did not happen. There was no slavery in South Africa, but they believe millions of them were killed, and that's a lie. So you get these kids that are taught that in school, or told that by the politicians, their leaders, and they get out of school between the ages of 18 and 25, where unemployment is over 50%. And what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, well, yeah, it seems like a recipe for disaster. Sorry, sir?
When you do that, are you in any danger of being reported by the students?
No, because I check my sources very well, and I'm very careful about what I say. I won't go in and say, okay, everything in your textbook is a lie. I just add on to it to show them, but see, from this perspective, it's like this, but from another perspective, it's like this. It usually falls on deaf ears, but I mean, it's difficult to stand there and teach all of that propaganda. I mean, that you're lying to them. It just feels wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a shortage of teachers in Australia. If I could find some way to get you out of South Africa and over here, I think everybody would be happier. But moving along, do you think that the white the white population of South Africa, farmers, teachers, stuff like that, are they willing to leave South Africa and they just can't, or do you think there's actually a case where people say, no, this is my land, I've built this on 5 generations?
Yeah, there's a split. I mean, some people at this point just say, okay, I've had enough, I want to go, let's just get out of here, it's a lost cause. Other people say, which you can understand, we speak our own language here, we tame this land, we've been here for 400 years. I myself have a farm in my family it's in the 5th generation now. So we've been here for so many generations, and we've endured so much here that it's understandable that they say, okay, kill me, you will kill me before you take my farm, before you take my land from me. There are people that feel like that, and are still hoping and praying for a different solution. But me personally, I don't see it. I mean, we have no political power. We other than Australia, no other country is really stepping forward and saying, all right, we'll take you as refugees, for example. So if you don't have a degree and you can't get a job in another country, you're basically stuck here.
And I don't want to go into too much detail either, but you were saying the other day that when you do migrate to another country, that you can't do it as a group. So if you've got family or whatever it may be, that the family is actually going to be split up over a period of time because they have to migrate one at a time. This just seems like...
Depending...
Sorry.
I think it's on a case-by-case basis. We have friends that recently... the man, he got offered a job in Australia he used to be a mechanic in the Air Force. And they arranged it actually that his entire family went over with him at once.
Okay.
Which is really nice. But I know in some cases it does happen where you have to be split up for a time being, for a while. Like, especially if one of you gets a job, but the other one does not.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, I don't want to say it, but, you know, obviously at the end of the day, you're splitting up the family. That obviously could be putting the people that stay behind in bigger danger, especially if it's a female with children, for example. That, you know, I don't want to get the whole male chauvinist here, but, you know, at the end of the day, if you got a man around the house, I presume that the black population would be less likely to attack you. It's a harder target. So yeah, that would be.
Yes, that definitely is true. I mean, that's the reason why they attack the elderly and people as the farms first, because they're easy targets. They'll break in and stuff in towns. There's been cases where they've a couple of months ago in a nearby town, they broke into an old lady's house. She lived alone. they raped her and killed her. It was 2 days before anybody found her.
Okay.
So they do go for soft targets.
Yeah.
Soft targets, basically. So if you have a man around it helps.
Is it?
You don't advertise.
Sorry.
Yeah, if you're a woman living alone, you don't advertise at all. In fact, you make it look like there's a man around, even.
Yeah, I can now just imagine a whole bunch of single women running around with mannequins claiming, having one-way conversations or two-way conversations with a mannequin. Is that... Sorry.
I had a question. How did you guys lose political power?
See, before 1994, during apartheid, black people were not considered citizens in South Africa, right? That also came with, it sounds horrible if I say it like that, but that also meant that they didn't pay any taxes and they weren't subject to military conscription, which the white males were at the time. So by giving them the right to vote, we were basically immediately outnumbered.
Yeah, so
that's how.
Sounds like there was a big voting block. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of the stuff that the rest of the world saw about apartheid is also much more one-sided than anybody would like to admit. I mean, even my husband works with people. If you speak to some of the older black people, they'll tell you outright it was better during apartheid than it is now. There were more jobs, there was less crime, the streets were clean, everything was being maintained. It went well. The only big thing is that they didn't have the right to vote, and we had separate living areas. Every town had a white area, a black one, a Indian and a colored one, and you were supposed to live in the area with your race. And then also stuff like mixed race marriage wasn't allowed, things like that. But overall, I mean, so yes, apartheid was bad, except for the fact that the crime was lower, the fact that the infrastructure was better, the fact that there was less corruption, the fact that there was better schooling, more employment, all of those things, I'm not saying we should go back to it. I'm just saying it has not been better since it ended. It has been worse.
Yeah, well, that's... Yeah, it's... I suppose you can't have one without the other, I suppose, can you? Yeah, okay. I don't know how I feel about that. You want to give the black population the vote, you want to give them the rights that everybody else has, but then by doing that, you've basically opened up the can of worms where you have immediately became outnumbered and basically sealed the fate of South Africa that it is to this day. But anyway.
Yes, I mean, we will never be able to vote our way out of this ever.
No.
So.
I don't want to be.
The only options. Sorry. Yeah, the only options left basically is just either leaving or, if they do actually come to take the land, fighting. And yeah, nobody's going to be on our side if we try and fight. So it's basically a lost cause at this point.
Is there any movement on the Australian side of things with them actually taking in migrants and doing that? Or have you heard of any about that? We probably have more information than you, but we haven't really heard anything about this. Is there any movement over there?
I have heard that. I've heard that farmers have started to apply.
Okay.
To the program to get over to Australia. So it has started happening. I mean, especially if you also consider that there's about 20,000 farms for sale at the moment in South Africa. It's the most dangerous job in the world. Nobody wants to. If you can get away from doing it, it's safer to do so. You understand?
But the thing is,
is it a refugee status request, basically?
Yes, as far as I know.
Yeah, and when they request it, the South African government tries to block it, or have they done anything like that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it's more specifically for the farmers. So I haven't looked into it much myself. I'm working on getting a job overseas so I can get a work visa, and take that route. But obviously the farmers should go first. It makes sense.
Of course.
They're the most in danger, but at the same time, the more of them leave, the more food we'll have to import, the more expensive food will become, which is just going to make the situation we're already in much worse.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the more farmers leave, the more the system fails and breaks down, the bigger the threat that it is that you're going to, I don't know, turn into chaos. This sounds like something that's going to end up devolving into something like Escape from LA, that you're going to have a country that just basically falls into oblivion. It's just going to become lawlessness, and if it's not already there, like
yeah, it's pretty much with the protests and stuff that are now, like just this year so far, they had protests. They were complaining that a certain trucking company that transports food from Durban to Johannesburg, it's employing enough of the local people, and they stopped the trucks on the highway, set fire to them and looted them. They caused something like 300 million rand worth of damage. That's about $30 million for you guys. Things like that. They will complain about healthcare, and then they will threaten doctors and nurses that try to go into the hospital and tell them, if you go to work, we'll kill you. They complain about crime by burning the police stations. Yeah.
This sounds
completely counterproductive.
This sounds very counterproductive. It really does. That if you have a shortage of food, you don't disrupt your transportation network. If you have a problem with a police department or crime, you generally don't burn down the police station. If you have a problem with doctors and nurses and medicine, you don't generally threaten nurses not to turn up to work. This kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that seems really weird behaviour. Does anyone not sit there and think,
I know. It's the opposite of what will help at the end, but
yeah,
they do it anyway. I mean, when they were protesting for free education, they burnt down the university.
Wow. Oh my God, really? Oh.
Don't ask me why. I don't know why.
I just want to bang my head into a wall.
Yeah, you just like, if I have a problem with the police department, I go to the police. If I have like crime, for example, say I got my car stolen, I go to the police department. I don't burn it down. Like,
I'm just thinking that once they've forced all of the Afrikaners out of South Africa, that we're just going to end up with Haiti 2.0.
Dude, I think this is going to be another Escape from LA, the movie. This will be the sequel. This will be Escape from Africa 2, or something like that. This is going to be...
Yeah.
Like...
And what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up with a whole lot of, commercials on TV, just asking for handouts.
Yeah. Help the
and
people of Africa.
Something else.
Sorry?
There's something else that needs to be taken into account. That a lot of the African refugees going into Europe, some of them go north, a lot of them come south. We have a problem in South Africa called xenophobia, where the local black population doesn't like the other black populations from other countries, from like Nigeria or Zimbabwe or so on, coming in because they say they're taking their jobs. So as soon as South Africa starts falling apart, where do you think everybody will run to get help?
Well, they're not going to help them.
No, but I mean, they're going to turn around and move into Europe.
Well, at the moment, Europe is shutting its ports. We've literally just had Italy deport or say no to a second boatload of immigrants, saying, sorry, we don't want you, go away. And they went over to Spain.
Good.
Yeah. Like, Italy
That's
is
good.
Italy is already rejecting the boats. Hungary already has a quote alt-right parliament. Sweden is about to go alt-right, hopefully in the next
Yeah.
election. Like, I'm sorry, but if they're banking on the fact that they're going to go over to Europe, you got another thing coming, because there's only going to be the only place you're going to be able to pull that stick is in Germany, and who wants to live in Germany? Like,
Yep.
Germany.
Meanwhile, our president is advocating for open borders for all of Africa and a single currency for all of Africa.
yeah, of course they want you. They want to prop up the South Africa that's literally falling apart. It's a case of hopefully we can go through and we can make our system look better, because we're going to drag everybody else down by propping us up. It's yeah, but that's what I presume that's what their plan is with the currency, that they'll want to go through, bring in some universal currency, so that way Africa can get itself out of this pending recession that Venezuela's put itself into. But what sort of...
No, the thing is, we're still kind of the economic hub of Africa, even in the state we're in today. Soon we will not be. That's why we still have so many people coming from other African countries into our country. And it's interesting, my mother said they were traveling the other day. They were at the border between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and they had to ask like at 3 or 5 different checkpoints if they can just walk into the middle of the bridge to take photos, right? Meanwhile, there's people, black people, streaming across that bridge from both sides, and nobody bats an eye. That's the level of border security we have.
One rule for you, thee, one rule for me.
Yes. And I can tell you some more stories about that as well.
Well, I was going to ask, what sort of... So in the documentary Farmlands, we hear about these... we hear about people getting things like dogs and stuff like that for security. What sort of... Obviously, I don't want to go into personal detail in your situation. We don't want to dox you or anything like that, or use any information that can be found to find you. But what sort of security methods are you guys, besides putting bars on your windows? What are some of the common security methods over there to help with this crime? What are you guys doing to...
Well, big dogs, it's almost impossible to get a license for a firearm. They've actually retroactively went and changed the law. So a lot of people that has firearms that got licenses for them are now technically illegal, and they're being prompted to go and hand them in because they don't have valid licenses for them anymore. They also mentioned this in the Lord Southern thing, and we've talked about doing that as well, getting paintball guns with nylon balls or pepper balls and defending yourself that way. Because you don't need a license for that, and you can't kill somebody, because even if somebody breaks into your house and you end up killing them in self-defense, unless you can absolutely prove it was self-defense, there's a chance that you can go to jail for murder.
I just wonder if jail's a better population, or not occupation, but a better prospect for some people at the moment than what they're living through. Like, I don't want to rag on what you guys are going through over there, because it sounds like it's literally a nightmare situation. It sounds like it's hell on earth. But I don't know. At this point, I would sit there and think that jail sounds like a holiday camp. That, yeah, at least you're going to get food and water, I suppose.
Yes, but you're going to be in there with a 92%, if we're going to speak statistically, of the population hating you.
True.
And the most violent 92%.
maybe.
So
maybe.
African jail is not a good idea. There's been this case recently. It's the first time somebody's been sentenced to prison under that law. A woman got robbed by a black person, and when she was talking to the police, she called them the person who robbed her a bad name.
Yeah, don't say that. Don't say the word, for God's sake.
No, I'm not going to say it.
No,
I'm not going to say it. But because she said that, she got sentenced to 2 years in prison. While we have a official or admiral or something in the military who called for the genocide of white people in South Africa, and he got a 6-month suspension from work.
So
That's the level of fairness there is in our.
So
what do you call it?
hang on. So some girl reported to the police department that she was she robbed or something? What you said, was it? Was it robbed?
Yes.
So she reports
yes, she was robbed.
Yeah. So she reports to the police department that she's been robbed. She describes the guy using a colourful phrase that I'm not going to say either. And
Yes.
Did they arrest the guy that originally robbed her?
I don't know. That didn't make the news. All that made the news was that finally somebody's being in jail for being a racist in South Africa. I mean, Trevor Noah even spoke about it on the show.
So the police actually turned around and said, "You've used a word that we do not appreciate. We're going to arrest you, even though you were just the victim of someone robbing you."
Yes, that's what happened.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, your politicians and admirals, and like you just said, can get up and literally advocating for killing the Boer, and they don't seem to get much at all. Like you said, the admiral was suspended for 6 months, was he?
Yes. There's currently a case. I'm going to read you what this guy said. He posted this on Facebook, and people complained, and he had to go to the the hate speech court.
I was going to say, I was going to say, if you want to post it in Super Chat, I'll put it up on the screen, so people can also read it as well.
Okay, I'll post the article.
Yep.
If you want to cleanse this country of all white people, you must act as Hitler did to the Jews. I don't believe anymore that there's a large number of not so racist people. I'm starting to be skeptical even within our movement, the ANC. I will from today unfriend all white people. I have friends sorry. Things cutting off at the side. I will from today unfriend all white people. I have friends. From today you must be put under the same blanket as any other racist whites, because secretly you are all a bunch of racist fuckheads, as we have already seen. They took him to the hate speech laws court, and his defense is that because he's been discriminated against in the past, he was clearly upset. So that is not that's not against our hate speech.
So like, can you take over for 5 minutes, mate? I got someone outside my house. Just, can you take over?
Sure,
for 5?
no worries.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if you, I think it's interesting that he can claim that, but I don't think that would work for anybody else.
Yeah, no, I know.
When he was in the military,
defense is basically that.
Yeah.
This is another guy. See, especially the Afrikaner rights groups are trying to get some of the politicians and people saying stuff like this on social media about killing all white people. So they're trying to get them prosecuted under the same laws as that they're prosecuting us when we say something that's bad. And so far it hasn't worked. It's every time it's been like that woman who called black people monkeys. She got $150,000 fine and she lost her job. But again, if you compare it to the guy in the military who got a 6-month suspension.
Yeah.
When he was saying we must kill them all, and they say it very graphically as well.
Yeah, they do. I'm just wondering, has there been any recourse through the social media platform themselves?
So far, not as far as I know, but I do know that they want to introduce new laws that will force us to. It will basically give them the opportunity to identify us, even if you're using a a handle or a nickname online. They want us to basically just register our IP addresses with our names attached to it, something like that.
Okay.
And that's coming at the same time that they're proposing new hate laws. So you can see in which direction that is going. They're trying to shut us up about what's really going on.
They're going to use Twitter, Facebook, etc. They want to track you down
Yes.
and basically prosecute you for the hate speech.
Yes, that's basically what's happening. It hasn't happened yet, but it's definitely on their to-do list.
I presume VPNs are going to become very popular over in South Africa?
Hey, let me type in show chat channel. Show text channel or whatever.
Yep. I'm back, by the way, guys. So, yeah, that in itself kind of sounds very Llewellyn and very scary.
Mind if I say something real quick?
Sure, man. Knock yourself out.
I think one of the problems is, even at the limit that you're at, it's like 8 or 7%. You guys are still concerned with being comfortable. Nobody's really willing to stand up and just start the race war, basically. And I know it's contentious because it's on YouTube. I know. I'm going to try and avoid anything else. But I mean, if you're being wiped out and you're not doing anything about it but laying down, you're going to lose.
Yeah, I will agree with that. The sentiment is the fact that I don't see a way out of this, that the white population of South Africa comes out. Even, I don't want to advocate for taking arms and fighting back. Obviously, I would never do that, YouTube. But, you know, even at that, at the moment, I don't see how you guys could possibly win this. That just... I can't, you know, obviously I can believe it, but, you know, you would have thought mainstream media, like, you hear about things over in South Africa, you hear about people smashing up shops and stuff like that, and for the most part, mainstream media isn't touching this situation with a 100-foot barge pole, and I understand why. It's, you know, they don't want to be branded a racist, there's a whole list of reasons that we won't get into, but there's a whole list of reasons why mainstream media isn't touching this, but you think that this would still be more mainstream knowledge, that people would still know exactly what is going on. Like, to give you guys an idea, I when I go live on this channel, I normally have anywhere up to 10 people tuning in at any point in time. Tonight,
I can give you another example of how it balances out, and that is also why it's so difficult to do something about it, because there was these two guys. What they did was completely wrong. They caught a black guy stealing crops from their farm, put him in a coffin to scare him. They did not close the coffin. They got caught. The one got sent to jail for 11 years, the other one for 14 years, for intimidating somebody who was stealing from them.
Yeah.
Now that was one story. It got reported over 200 times in our mainstream media, whereas over 100 farm attacks combined got reported just over 200 times.
And it's not just that either. It seems like I was going to say, that when I go live on YouTube, I normally get, 5, 10 so viewers. This stream itself, it had one viewer for a long time, to the point where I've even had to post it on Facebook, and now it's starting to get a few more people come in. But it just seems like even just mentioning this South Africa thing, that is enough to get YouTube and everything to just squash it into oblivion, because they don't want people talking about it.
This is interesting, because we're not on Gap. I mentioned it early on in the thing. I tried to get it to go live and it wouldn't. Now, I didn't try it with any different words, but I am actually curious that if I had not put the string South Africa in the title, would it have worked?
So what, you couldn't go live on Gap, you just say?
No. I tried twice with 2 different stream keys and it wouldn't work. But I'm just thinking, if I didn't put South Africa in the title, I wonder if it would have worked.
See, I posted on South Africa about the that we're doing this, and I put the link to the channel. But I haven't seen anyone notify it or anything. That no one's clicked upvote or repost or anything. So
well, the Microsoft is the platform for their video, so it must be Microsoft that put in, if you try to go live with South Africa in the title, bam, it just rejects it. That's a bit tinfoil hat. This is just conjecture. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's get back on topic. Because I'm sorry. I'm still going to do this no matter what YouTube says. But so like I say, I must admit, I am impressed with the fact that the white population haven't come together and built a raft and left. Considering how Australia seems to carry on when it comes to refugees, I'm surprised that you guys haven't built a boat by this stage and just got the F out of Dodge. But maybe.
Okay. One of the problems with that is we are law-abiding people in the first place. So we're not going to try and get into a country legally. We're not going to try and go and live off another country's welfare state. Most people I know would not go if they don't know that they will be able to provide for the family over there. In other case, what's the point of going there? The other thing is we're spread pretty thinly. You can imagine we're 8% of the population. And we're spread pretty thin, organize everybody together, especially since some say stay and fight, some say nothing's wrong, some say go and leave. And the ones saying nothing's wrong is mostly the more liberal English-speaking white people who live in the nice parts, like the Western Cape, for example, Cape Town, bigger cities. Whereas I'm in a rural area. I've already mentioned the other day there was somebody I knew who was attacked on a farm. That's not even the first person that I've personally known to be attacked on a farm. It's not the first person I've known people killed on farms, family members killed on farms. So the situation is a little bit different if you're, depending on where you are in the country. And of course, we've been told for 25 years that we are guilty of a crime against humanity and we must pay for that. And that indoctrination also has set in, especially I can see it in the faces of the white kids, for example. They ask me like, why is the bad guy in the literature we read always the white guy? Stuff like that, you know.
We have the same narrative
of their history and their culture. Yeah, but they've been completely stripped of their history and their culture, and they're trying to take away our language as well.
Yeah, they've been doing this here too. Like they try to take away Australia Day. We've noticed the narrative seems to be around a lot. That the white guy is the bad guy.
Yeah, you know? the white people are always the demons. You know, we're the white demons that. Yeah, like you just it doesn't.
Especially in Africa, we have that history. That not so long ago. I mean, I can remember it. I was a little girl, but I can remember it. Not so long ago, we were the evil racists in South Africa, keeping the black population down, to keeping them for cheap labor or whatever the story was. So even until today, if I run into a more liberal person on the internet, like on Twitter, for example, automatically go to say, "Oh, South African racist."
Wow.
Evil racist. You know, we're pretty cucked because of that. Because we've been trying to play nice for so long, and we've been on the losing side of everything. And come to they will take everything from us, including our lives.
Yeah, I really don't know what option you guys have. This whole, you know, do you stay, do you fight? I think the option is pretty Yeah, I think the option is pretty honestly you have to leave. That, I know there's people who've been there for generations. They have farms and everything like that, but I don't see a way that this is going to turn around and become anywhere where it comes back to civilization. That this seems to be spiraling, and this, like you say, that the proverbial shit is only going to hit the fan a lot more when other systems keep failing more and more and more. Like, you know, they're already talking about having a water shortage. What happens when all of a sudden there's a food shortage, or, you know, the power infrastructure shuts down, or whatever it may be?
Our power infrastructure shuts down already.
Sorry?
From time to time. Yeah, it already happens. And yeah, the food's the next thing to go. And it's
Hang on,
the power...
the power system already is failing? What? Hang on, what's this? I haven't heard anything about this. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's been going on for a couple of years now. They call it load shedding. They claim that because so many new people are being connected to the electricity grid, that our electricity provider can't handle all of the people using electricity at once. We have to take turns having it switched off for 6 hours at a time. And that's not the reason at all. We have large coal deposits. There's no reason for them to be not able to do it other than incompetence and corruption.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and I said to him that the situation in South Africa, it sounds like the political parties are using it for political gain. That basically, if they go through, they make out the white people are the devils. They keep the people hungry. They keep the people angry. They keep the black population focusing on the white people being the problem. That go kill the Boer, kill these guys. These guys are causing all this. That these politicians are going to stay in power longer and longer. It's a way of them saying, don't look at me. I'm not the one causing the problems. The white people are. Go and target them. Meanwhile, the black portion stay in power longer and longer. It seems like it's passing the buck. It's like, hey, this person's the problem. These are the problem. You need to go and take care of these people. Yeah.
Yes,
well,
exactly. It's also for financial gain.
Yeah.
There's been corruption here where our government was doing handouts to black communities, Aboriginal communities in Australia. And they were doing it through tribal leaders. And what happened was that some of the tribal leaders were taking the money and using it for their own personal gain. So eventually our government had to shut down that system, not without a backlash calling us racists.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, we could get into a different story about a whole bunch of systems that have gone through, and I know stories about Aboriginal elders and stuff that are manipulating systems and stuff, but that's another stream for another time. And you know, before
I was just bringing it up as an example. That's all.
Yeah, before Right Wing Watch sits there and says,
just to give you an idea.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just to give you an idea. I mean, Jacob Zuma had 783 charges of corruption against him before he became president. He then became president, and those charges just disappeared.
Oh, it's like magic, is it? Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Wouldn't having those charges against him, wouldn't that make him ineligible to run as a politician?
No.
Okay.
This is Africa.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like, to me, you know, if I had a choice between someone who apparently has over 700 charges of corruption or someone else, I might pick someone else. That I might sit there and think, maybe he's not the best person to run your country, but yeah.
But you don't pick the person, you pick the party.
Yeah.
And whoever the party votes in as the president of the party, if that party then wins the national election, that person becomes president.
Okay.
So, and the party they all vote for is the one that brought them all this nice freedom that they have now. All the crime and the unemployment and the infrastructure falling apart. And they owe them a debt, and they will use any measure. I mean, I've heard this on the radio, on the news, before an election, where a politician said, told the people that they should vote for the ANC to haunt them.
Sorry, what was that? You're breaking up. Sorry, what was the past part?
He said they must vote for the ANC, or their ancestors will come back from the dead to haunt them.
Oh, okay. So now, okay, yeah, interesting.
Voodoo.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't use the call down the lightning argument as well while they're at it.
I just can't.
Oh, that was.
Sorry.
That was before the lightning thing. The decolonization of science came after that. That's a new idea they came up with.
Yeah, they have to decolonize science too. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that I've had some pretty far out superstitions when it comes to Africa and stuff like that. But yeah, I was going to say it's raising the ancestors to haunt you because you don't vote for a party. That is a new one, I'd have to say. That is definitely interesting. But anyway, moving along. Okay, I'm sorry. But...
Did that derail you completely?
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I'm surprised that people actually believe that people actually sit there and think, okay, maybe I should vote for you. That if someone said that to me, if someone said that to me, I would think, dude, you're frigging nuts.
Yep. Okay. I don't know. I think it's a problem with long-term being able to look at something long-term. You know, like the counterproductive stuff they do as well. They'll go and loot all the shops to get the foreigners out, for example, and then they'll complain for the next couple of months there's no shops to buy from because they chased away all the people selling them food. Then they have to get a bus or a taxi to a neighboring town to get food from. It's the same thing that happens with elections. They go right before the elections, they hand out T-shirts and airtime and electricity vouchers, and they get the votes. And after that, they can ignore them for the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, is it coming from the politicians about this whole go and attack the police department? Is there someone from the political party that is pushing for this to say, hey, the police are the problem, go and attack them? Or
no, that's more at a community level. It depends on which town you're in and which problem they seem to be having at the time.
I was just wondering if it's sort of been filtered down from the politicians that this is... Yeah, I can understand why a politician would do this. I can understand why, because the country in turmoil is good for them. It seems like they're actually benefiting from this. But yeah, I was going to say it's...
Yeah, I have no idea. It's just like... I mean, you'll wake up in the morning and you're on your way to... You'll get a message saying, all right, avoid these roads. They're protesting there about this or that. And then you plan your route accordingly. You know, or sometimes it'll be a day or two warning where they say, we're going to shut down this entire town or shut down this entire province because we're upset about this thing. And then that day you just stay home. A couple of weeks ago, they were protesting about the MC of the province. They wanted him to resign, and we actually had to close the schools.
It doesn't sound like the kids at your schools are not because of you, obviously, but because of the general curriculum. It seems like the education these kids are getting is not really worth the paper it's written on anyway, to be honest. I don't know if
no, it's not. Because we're not allowed to fail them. And they only need to get 30% to pass in any case.
What? Hang on, what? They only need to get 30% of their grades to pass?
Yes, and even they can only fail once per phase. So they can only fail once every 4 years. Which is how you end up.
When you went to school, what was your percentage to get a pass? Was it 30%?
No. When I went to school, I think I had to get at least I think it was like a D.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a D was around 55% or something, wasn't it? And that was That was like bare ass minimum, scraping in like by the seam of your pants.
Yeah.
Like,
That's not even the worst
And if you
part.
got straight D's, you were not getting into university.
no. So it gets worse? What?
That's what, yeah, because they decided the maths for the grade 9s were too hard. They gave them a special 6% leniency, and then just after the exams were written at the end of the year, they said, no, we're dropping it another 10% as well, so 16% in total, which means that you could technically pass maths with 14%, 14%.
14% of your grade is, I think we're starting to hit letters in the alphabet close to L or M. I think we're going way past
X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going way past D by this stage. That we're starting to give them M's for grades, but you know, regardless.
Yeah, so that, I mean,
Nice.
education is basically for the most part of the country, if you're not in a, we have private schools as well. If you're not, if the kids aren't in a private school, even though the teachers are qualified, the kids know they don't have to pass to be sent to the next grade. So they either don't show up for class at all, or they disrupt. So the 5 you have that's willing to learn gets disrupted by the 35 trying to break the room apart or start one type of shit or another to distract anything productive from happening in the class.
So this just seems like it's a recipe for this to keep. This is just going to be a cycle. If you have a whole bunch of youth that aren't educated, that aren't learning how systems work, that aren't learning the basic of math, English, science, and whatnot, how are they going to run machinery like the water treatment plants or the energy production plants, or how are they going to run a farmer or a farm equipment to farm the land? That this just seems like it's going to be a cycle that just keeps repeating, that the people are not going to be educated to do this stuff, so therefore the children aren't learning because they're not being taught at school, and then when they grow up they're going to have kids that are going through the same system that aren't learning how to do this stuff. So when they grow up, they have kids that it just keeps repeating. It's just a great big circle.
Yes, and it spills over to tertiary education as well.
Yeah.
Because now the universities are forced to lower their standards so that they don't fail a bunch of people and look, let's say, for example, racist in the process. So your degrees level, or the standards of the degrees are coming down. That's what has been worrying me. That's why I decided to do a postgrad degree, just to get that extra level, just to make sure, you know, because one of these days the degree I have that won't be worth the paper it's written on, because the standards are falling so much.
Well, I was going to say that by the not to speak ill of your intelligence, you seem very intelligent or anything like that, but I was going to say, give it 10 more years and you might be equivalent to an Einstein. You might be able to start giving lectures at university about astrophysics or something. The way that they're going, that the population seems to be getting dumber. And
yeah, except I'm the wrong color.
Yeah, well, there's that problem too. You know, they'll probably try and shoot you on the way to the university, but regardless. But yeah, I look, obviously we shouldn't joke about this. Obviously this is a serious problem, but I don't know what to say. This has left me kind of speechless. I knew things over there were bad. I saw the Farmlands documentary and it sort of touches on this sort of stuff, but you know, that you hear about, you see the documentary and you think, okay, maybe this is just an isolated case. Maybe this is Lauren going through, she's picked the worst examples.
No, that's pretty much, that was accurate.
I was going to say, are you okay in the, yeah.
Yes, my...
Is someone trying to break in?
I have a little back. No, it's my husband trying to break out. I have to go in a couple of minutes.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll wrap it up soon anyway. So you're saying that what we saw in this documentary is, this is the average person. This is not biased or anything like that. That what we've seen in this documentary is legitimate. This is...
No, that happens on a daily basis. There's a farm attack every day, and there's a farm murder every 5 days.
Okay. Well, look, I'll ask you now. I presume you don't have any problems with me sending this recording to the Parliament member. I think it was Corey Bernardi. Do you have any problems with me giving him a copy of this recording so that he can use this and raise awareness, or would you rather?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. I'll try my best. No guarantees, but at the very least, I'll try, and I might also shoot a copy of it to Pauline Hanson as well, because she also has been raising questions about this as well. But yeah, so like, do you have any questions before we wrap up, or?
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Susan. Obviously not your real name. I want to thank you for obviously taking the time telling us about this. Please keep me informed regarding this. Obviously, you know who I am and I know who you are, but yeah, please, obviously, for the record, keep me informed. If anybody has any questions in the chat, or has any questions in a later date when YouTube actually wants to push this and let people know the live stream is apparently actually running, because I never even got a notification myself. Obviously, feel free to hit me up in the comments section, and I can always contact Susan and ask these questions. Apart from that, Susan, obviously, please stay safe in South Africa. I might try and send you a textbook on how to build a raft, just in case.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No worries. Enjoy. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.